Whenever I stay at a White Lotus, I always have a memorable time.
Welcome to Sicily.
La dolce vita.
You bring your assistant to a vacation with your husband.
It's not like she's gonna be in our bed and stuff.
Flirting is one of the pleasures of life.
You're 80 years old.
But the women I desire remain young. You can relate to that.
Are these the kind of people we're gonna be hanging out with now?
It's like you got rich and now he's your best friend.
You guys party?
That's fun.
That's fun.
What happened last night?
Just been a series of very bad decisions.
You've had very bad luck. Best thing about luck is it can always change.
Billy's just so romantic. You're gonna die. They're gonna have to drag you out of here.
As we continue our seasonal look at Emmy contenders, in this episode, we're joined by the White Lotus editor, John M. Valerio, whose credits also include Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, The Old Man, Shameless, and Parks and Rec. John won an Emmy a year ago for the final episode of The White Lotus Season 1, titled Departures. And earlier this year, he won an American Cinema Editor's Eddie Award for the finale of Season 2, Arrivederci. We'll talk about Season 2 in this episode. I'm Carolyn Giardina. Welcome to the Hollywood Reporters Behind the Screen. Hi, John. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So, as we were just talking about, you have this broad range of work you've done, drama, comedy. What do you like to edit the most? Do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I've always drawn to dramas. And when I first started, it was all comedy. As a young editor, you're just sort of, you want to work, right? So you want to get the jobs that are offered to you. And it just so happened that my mentor at the time, who I was assisting for, Dean Holland, he was a pretty big comedy editor, on The Office. So all of my jobs were all comedies, and I was doing that for a while. And he introduced me to the other Holland in my life, Todd Holland, who is very well-known director and mentored me through my, early years doing comedy. But my heart was always in drama, and I was looking for a way out of comedy. But you get, like anything here, you kind of get typecast, and everyone they were very reluctant to give me opportunities to cut dramas. And it was, well, you're a comedy editor. And I'm like, I'm not even funny. Like, what, how is it that I'm a comedy editor? So, fortunately, I was able to sort of break out of it. And, I enjoy comedy, but yes, my heart is in drama.
Well, let's talk about Season 2. It's set at a White Lotus resort in Italy and begins with the discovery of a body in the sea. And then the story begins a week earlier. So throughout the series, we know that something nefarious will happen. To start, would you talk about just how you approach the season and use misdirects to keep the audience guessing as to who will not survive the week?
Well, I don't know if there was very much that, I did editorially. I think a lot of it was, the way Mike had written the season. I don't think there were any tricks I had to do, too many tricks that, I had to do in editing. I think, actually, no, I take that back. Actually, we were careful about how we were cutting Quentin and the gays. And, Quentin could have been, a very twirly mustachioed villain throughout the season. Tom Hollander gave us, quite a, with his performance throughout takes, there was, without the spectrum, there was the sort of more of a villainous take, more of a friendly take. And so we sort of struck a balance of, okay, at what point do we want to get a sense that there's something wrong with this guy, and he's and his intentions are, doesn't really have the best of intentions here. So I think that was sort of one of the main things we did as far as trying to sort of keep it sort of not tipping our hat as to like, okay, this guy Quentin, he's our bad guy.
Right. What did you have to work with? Do they do a lot of takes on the show?
Yeah, I mean, not a ton. I mean, I'd say an average amount. Anywhere, between, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe as many as 11, 12 takes. I mean, it's nothing like stories I've heard of, other shows where you hear things like hundreds of, literally 100 takes, nothing like that. But it was, a fair amount. I think, once Mike has his performance dialed in, you can really see the process of him working with his actors. And I think once he gets what he wants, he just, he knows he has it and he moves on. So, but within those takes, there's, the actors always give us such, sort of, a wide palette of things to sort of to play with, different colors, different sort of tones. So, like I mentioned with the Quentin character, how far do we take him so that he's just this sort of really obviously bad guy, or, oh no, actually Quentin, he's a really friendly, fun guy who just wants to, show Tanya a good time. And then also, Jennifer, she's amazing. She'll always give you far more than you could ever need. And the challenge with her is just of all the gold you have. And, it's just, all right, which, how do we dial this in with all of that,
Well, let's talk about the final episode and the point at which Jennifer Coolidge's Tanya and Portia, played by Haley Lou Richardson, realize what's happening.
I think up until they sort of have this moment together on the phone call on the yacht, each character individually is sort of making their own little discoveries. Portia is sort of discovering on her own that things are not quite what they seem with Jack. And Tanya's character sort of seeing that photo, at the party. But I think it's really sort of Portia who figures it out and sort of calls Tanya and sort of, it's like trying to warn her that something's up. And Tanya isn't quite buying it at first until she has that sort of, that aha moment when she remembers the photograph. So, it was, and then, throughout so the build up to that, we wanted to have fun with how much again, talking about the reveal of who dies at the end, kind of wanted to have fun with and be careful about how much we tip it, how soon do we sort of, how many kernels do we want to leave to sort of, let people in on what's about to happen. Or I know people would watch and have fun and sort of have their own theories based on certain, little clues, or maybe it was just a slight comment or look, or just a simple look that maybe Quentin gives Tanya in a moment, or, the party, there's that shot that, the big party in episode 6 when, she's doing cocaine and having, and then you have that shot of that one look of Quentin that she sees, and it's just sort of just it's kind of a slow burn build to these two characters realizing, something is up. And I think once the phone call happens, that's when it's like, okay, it's all on. It's, they're aware of the plan. And I think it was just sort of crafting the moments up to that phone call on the yacht.
So let's talk about that final scene on the boat then. She's aware of what's happening. You see the terror in her face. And then she goes in the back and finds the gun. Tell us about cutting that sequence. And then you kind of gave the audience a moment to think that everything was going to be okay for her.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's great. Tell us about cutting that last scene on the boat.
Okay. So as I think by the time we're on that dinner scene on the boat, I think the audience has a pretty good idea of what's happening. But at the same time, and I remember kind of having discussions about this, we wanted to push it as much as we can, even though you're pretty sure that Quentin's the bad guy and they have this sort of devious plan to kill Tanya. We still, I think, well, at least for me, I don't want to speak for Mike, but I always, at approaching this scene, still wanted to leave at least a little bit of reasonable doubt that maybe it could still possibly just be all in her head. And maybe she's just being super paranoid and neurotic. So even when, again, talking about the performances of Quentin, there are performances of Quentin on that boat where he is just all the way like, I'm the bad guy, you're dead, we're coming. But I still wanted to sort of, like I said, keep a little bit of reasonable doubt there about his intentions. And so we kind of tempered that down a little bit so that maybe she is just being paranoid. So even when, you can see the terror in her face, and even when she grabs that bag, she gets up, runs to the bathroom, grabs the bag, goes in, shuts herself in the cabin. There were options to sort of shoot, we had coverage of as soon as she runs, Quentin, Niccolo, they all get up and chase after her. But we thought, okay, let's just keep it all in Tanya's POV. So we see her run into the bedroom. She's in the bedroom, close the door. That's it. We do not see anything other than what she sees. So even when, so it's sort of, I think when she's in the bedroom and she sees the gun and they're banging on the door, it was just pushing it as far as we could push it to this sort of, to the moment where, yeah, they're after her. And I think what's really great about this is that it is all from her POV. You're in there. And I think it's very limited cutting. There's a few cuts in the bedroom, but I think it was just very strong to keep it on her point of view and almost one take. And then when she comes out and she just starts blasting, we just pull her, where the camera just is on her and pulls her out. And you just sort of hear the gunshots, hear the bodies falling, and you're just totally with her. And I love that. And I know that's what Mike's intention was when he, from the beginning when he shot it. And I thought it was just, really, really great. And and then, like you said, you think, oh my God, she made it. She's okay. Everyone takes a sigh of relief. And you have that really funny line. That question, I think is very funny. It sort of, is like breaks the tension where she's made it out. She's survived their evil scheme, and she's holding the gun and she's just like, is Greg having an affair? And just like such a funny moment to sort of like, oh, okay, she made it. And then we follow her around, and yeah, I think then the last thing you think after that is that she's going to die this sort of, the way I think Mike calls it, a derpy death. I heard him say in an interview, which is kind of funny. So yeah, she just dies this sort of derpy death, just falling off the side of the boat after all of that. So I thought that was really, really brilliant and fun to do. And also, you know, in that moment when she falls off the boat, we just kind of wanted it to just be a very simple fall off, nothing overcut, where it's, you know, it's where it could, you know, where a fall, you know, you have these multiple overcut things where then it just feels like you're in some sort of action movie. But it's just a simple fall in one shot, dunk, and it's just, I love how it just one shot, she falls, dunk, and you just hold on that shot, just waiting. Oh my gosh, what is she going to come up? Did that just happen? What's going on here? You know, and just sort of holding that moment and letting people just, what did I just see? You know? So, yeah, it was a really fun sequence, and we're, you know, very proud of it, obviously.
Now, you said you had coverage of them chasing her. Was there an alternative ending, or what was that about?
No, that was the cut. We never did an all. It was just, you know, on the day with shooting, they covered it from a number of different angles, and there was coverage of them getting up, chasing her. We had coverage of Quentin outside the bedroom, the cabin door. You know, you see them running up, chasing after her but we just left it all with Tanya. And that was always, I think that was always the intent. And we never had any all cut of that. It was always that.
So while the storyline's happening, you also had a lot of other characters and multiple storylines to keep active in this episode. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, that's anytime you do a show with a big ensemble like this in multiple stories. Yeah, it is a little bit. It is tricky to balance all of these stories and make sure you're reaching a satisfying conclusion. So, you know, making sure that we're sort of, you know, that the pace is feeling right, that we're not taking too long with or leaning too heavily on, you know, one storyline over the other. Although I think, and this is just the, you know, Mike White's genius. I think, you know, just the way he just knows, he's just so smart, and he knows how to, you know, write these kinds of things. And so I think sort of episodes 6 and 7 they both act to resolve certain storylines. So it's not like, I think sort of episode 6 sort of resolves the storyline around you know, the DeGrassos, Bert, Albie, and Dominic. And so it's not all happening in the finale. I think the finale is sort of, you know, leans heavily on Tanya's character and the couple's character, you know, and I think so it sort of gives us room not to have to juggle too many plates at one time. So that was great where we didn't work. But I think we just sort of, you know, it's just, you just sort of feel as you know, watching, you kind of feel it out and feel like if we're in it and engaged in what's happening with Tanya and we're not missing anything else, then we don't need to cut away. We're with her. And I think it's, you know, there were certainly a lot of things that we had to cut from just dialogue. There was a lot of dialogue that we had to cut with Tanya's scenes, but it's just sort of feeling it out, just making sure that we're just feeling that we're not staying overstaying our welcome in this one place. And when we get to that place where you're feeling like, all right, we're sort of treading water here, not really getting much more out of this. What's happening with our other characters? We play it and watch it and review it and sort of feel where those, maybe these lines of dialogue can go. Maybe we don't need this whole piece of the conversation, so that we can, between Tanya and Quentin, there was a lot more conversation on the yacht, between Tanya and Quentin that we just it didn't need it. It didn't. And Mike is he's not precious at all about anything. He's the first one to just be like, lose that. I don't want it. We don't need it. Get rid of that. That's not helping us. So, I think that's it, just sort of feeling it out and knowing when you sort of, we need to step away and check in with our other characters. And, but like I said, it was a little easier because I think with the finale, it was mainly sort of focused on Tanya's story and the couples, the Spillers and the Sullivans. So yeah, and Valentina's story, hers was, so a lot of stories were kind of wrapped up in episode 6.
You talked about Tom Hollander's performance. Do you want to talk a little about cutting Jennifer Coolidge's?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Jennifer Coolidge, as you can probably imagine, the just gets so much brilliance, so much gold. And the really challenging thing is, of all of this, how do we what do we keep? Right? That's the challenge. Like, what do we, love to keep it all, but she just give you her own improv lines. Mike would throw her improv lines, and the two of them, they work very well together, and they trust each other so much, and so she would just come up with her hilarious ad lib lines, and between her ad lib lines and Mike throwing out ad lib lines, I would say, and I mean this in the best possible way, and I hope it's a compliment, but her scenes were the most difficult to cut because of that, because of how great she was, because there was so much great stuff, and it just took a lot of work to sort of, because there was so much of it, sort of getting it sort of in this place that sort of you're moving the story and it's streamlined and consistent, because she's so talented. There would be moments where it's hilarious, but okay, maybe it's not quite in the tone of what the scene needs to be. And so then it becomes, well, do we keep this thing that's like really funny, or do we sort of go with, okay, this, even though that's a really funny thing, I don't think people are going to buy it, or it doesn't really, it's not grounded in where her character is right now. So yeah, I just remember cutting dailies and looking at the one-liner at the days, it was all, Jennifer's scenes. I'm like, oh boy, these are going to be really fun days, but long days. Cause I just know, when you have actors, they just sort of give you what it is, and it's great. It's, it cuts together real easy. It's pretty straightforward. Right. But with you have someone like Jennifer, who's just, gives you all these amazing things that you're just like, oh my God, I want that. I want that. I want that. But how do I get from there to there? Because, because she gives you so many, these amazing sort of improv lines, sometimes they're disjointed, but you want to connect them in a way. So you're trying to find a way to connect them, to make them feel like they're all, all part of the story. So.
Do you want to give a shout out to the editorial team?
Yeah, no. Editor Heather Persons, she is amazing. She helped me so much, in the first season when I came on, and she had worked with Mike before, and I think they had done a lot more things recently. And so it was great when I kind of came in, and she sort of, helped me in a big way. And, we sort of collaborated a lot on, and just sort of talking about what I was just saying, or just like discussing our Jennifer Coolidge scenes. And so, yeah, it was such a great time with everybody. And my assistant, Zoe Bauer, and her assistant, Bob Allen, and everybody, in post. It was, it was a really, really great experience.
And what can you tell us about season 3?
I probably know as much as you. I know it's in Thailand. I think Mike talked about it sort of, I don't know if this is still the case, but he talked about it sort of exploring death and, religions. And I think I just saw that Natasha Rothwell is returning as Belinda. I saw that in the trades. Honestly, that's really as much as I know. I'm sort of been in the trenches, my own, kind of doing my own thing. So I haven't had too many conversations with Mike about season 3. I know he's out there now getting ready to write. So
what are you working on at the moment?
Old Man, season 2 of The Old Man. Yeah, it's funny how season 1 I was Old Man right into White Lotus, and now here I am, season 2, Old Man. And if timing works out, it'll be Old Man right into White Lotus again.
Well, congratulations on all your great work, and thanks for joining us. This was fun.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.